So we have an update on the biggest new piece of information that came from the first day of public impeachment inquiry hearings that we saw yesterday, which is probably pretty obvious from the title of this video. But just in case you weren't paying attention to the news yesterday, you didn't get a chance to actually watch much of the hearings live. Like, I know I didn't actually get to watch much live because I was doing so much production for the show. And I think many people didn't necessarily get to see it when it was happening. Many people probably know what happened afterward, but if you weren't paying attention, much of what we heard was a restating of what Bill Taylor had previously said. The new piece of information was something that he apparently learned. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining. Was something that he learned between his initial testimony and today, and that is from another source that he had worked with, that they had overheard a conversation between Gordon Sondland and Donald Trump in the immediate aftermath after he'd met with one of President Zelensky of Ukraine's aides, that Trump asked about the investigations, and that Sondland confirmed that he talked to them about it, and then asked about what was going on and about Trump. Sondland confirmed that Trump cared more about the investigations than about the current state of Ukraine or whatever. So that was a pretty big update. That was the bombshell from yesterday. Now, that is technically second information because Bill Taylor heard it from an employee who overheard the conversation. Bill Taylor himself did not overhear the conversation. Wink, Jesse. But as of today, according to Axios, they're reporting, or actually I should say originally the Associated Press. Axios is simply spreading it. But according to the Associated Press, it has been confirmed by a second source that they also overheard that call. So again, that's not, the end of the story, but it's not just Bill Taylor getting it from one person. Another person has confirmed it. Now, I know that this is pretty important. Some, on Fox News are trying to pretend that this either didn't happen or that it's not new or that it's not a bombshell. But I personally think that it is, and the fact that it's been confirmed by a second source is noteworthy. Now, is that going to be enough? That's the question that always comes after any new piece of information. It's sort of a nonsense, evasive question because, of course, look, if they wanted to impeach him, they can impeach him today. They have the votes, the evidence is all out there, and then it moves on. I think one of the reasons they're not going to do this immediately is because they want more time to lay out all of the evidence, because they know that once they hand it over to the Senate, it's entirely possible that Mitch McConnell is either going to do the entire thing in like an hour or exert so much control over it that we'll never learn anything during that time. And so it's pretty important that the Democrats use the time that they have well and reveal as much as possible to the American people so that they know what the stakes are and everything. But anyway, sorry, I'm seeing some interesting comments. So look, that's certainly important. So put that out there. I don't know if anybody knows who's actually testifying today. Feel free to comment. Normally between like 5:30 when I wake up and now I'm just doing production, so I didn't have much time to look into that. I'm not expecting a bombshell on the scale of what we saw yesterday today. But I will say, if you want a little bit of interesting background information on this story, you should definitely go to Media Matters because Matt Gertz has put up a really interesting article called Trump's Ukraine Scandal is a Fox News Story, where he goes through sort of the full timeline of how Fox News has been instrumental from the very beginning in setting up Donald Trump potentially for impeachment and is also fairly important if he is going to avoid it. So initially, their talk for literally years now about Ukraine has helped to influence Donald Trump from him watching Fox News. Much of what he thinks he knows about Ukraine has been entirely filtered through a Fox News sort of lens. Then you have the effect that they've had on Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani, of course, then talked to Donald Trump and influenced him on it and everything too. And then in the lead up to these hearings, almost all of the defense of Donald Trump has taken place on Fox News, and that will continue to be the reality for the rest of this, honestly. And so in a way that I don't think we've ever seen before, the course of a presidential scandal has been almost entirely intertwined with a major news outlet. And so that's weird. Not necessarily good for the country or for democracy either, but certainly interesting. But anyway, so those are the two big things. One, confirmation of the big bombshell from yesterday. And then if you want some additional information that helps to put this in context, you should definitely go look at Media Matters for that. Trump's Ukraine Scandal is a Fox News Story article by Matt Gertz. Now, there's two other little bits of news that I just want to briefly mention because I'm not going to be able to do it on the live show. Although I will say, You're definitely going to want to tune into the live show in about 33 minutes because in studio for only the second time in the history of the Damage Report, Michael Brooks of the Michael Brooks Show is going to be joining me. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about the impeachment hearing, really about the media reaction to the first day, which has been an embarrassment. So we're going to be talking about that. But also, we've got a reporter who's going to be coming on to talk about Rodney Reed and his case, who's been covering this case for years and years and years. One of the foremost experts on this case is going to be joining us. So that's really important. We also have the just announced this morning Green New Deal for housing. That's AOC and Bernie's plan. We're going to be breaking that down and reacting to it. And then a little bit later on, Lou Dobbs, how does he spend his first show after the first day of the impeachment hearings? Helping to spread, I should say, in this particular case, anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, which he's done many times before. So we're going to show you the new one as of last night, and then we're going to walk through just a few of the highlights of Lou Dobbs and his campaign against George Soros and others. So we've got that. And and also, Meanwhile if you've watched, it's almost always just my segment where I go through some international news. But Michael is going to be joining me for a mega Meanwhile where we're going to be talking about one of the side effects of climate change that nobody predicted. Very scary stuff there. We've also got updated information about the long-term costs of the war on terror, which is just mind-blowing. And then we're going to be talking about Bolivia as well. This is a story that Michael Brooks has obviously been, he's jumped into, knows a lot about it. He's going to be joining us to break down what's been going on over the past few days, the past week on that. But before we get to that, two little stories I want to talk about. One, normally it would fit in a Meanwhile but I unfortunately don't have time with all that's going to be on the show today. But if you haven't already seen, Venice is experiencing absolutely horrific flooding. Second worst on record, I believe. It's the worst in more than 50 years, I think. 74-inch flooding. So bad that in one of the iconic sort of tourist squares, where they normally will have some flooding, like it's not weird to see some water in there, there are people swimming in it. And one person said it looked like the shore, like there were actual waves in this square. It's expected that it's going to do hundreds of millions of euros in damage, this just one flood, let alone, the worst floods that are going to come, unfortunately. And they have all of these measures, obviously, to control flooding that have been tested quite a bit. Yeah, I saw the thing, Mose, about suitcases being floated away. And all of those failed because it's just so bad. Now, look, Venice is one of the ultimate cases of who's going to get it worse. There's a few other cities, but Venice is obviously, that's a standout who's going to get it really bad. But while I guess the severity certainly stands out for Venice, like this is a preview of what we will experience in a number of cities. Cities that have millions, in some cases more than 10 million people living in them, are going to be wiped out. Almost no matter what we do, but certainly worse and worse and sooner if we don't do something about this climate crisis. So the experience happening in Venice right now, which is an absolutely horrendous international tragedy that's going on, and one individual has already died from electrocution, which is really sad. I believe it was a man in his 70s, tried to start a pump, I think, to help with the flooding and was electrocuted, unfortunately, and died. So just bear in mind, we can't necessarily always cover every international story, but I am keeping my eye on it. And then the other story is I've occasionally done videos in the morning about Donald Trump's legal campaign to stop his tax returns from ever coming out. And I just want to give a quick update. It's not worthy of its own video or anything like that, but the most recent ruling from an appeals court says that Congress can seek 8 years of his tax returns. And that is like the 12th update. And the ridiculous thing is he keeps losing these, and the courts keep ruling that we can get his tax returns, but you don't actually get them because it's immediately appealed. They put a block on it. And so supposedly this is setting it up for it to go to the Supreme Court. Now it is possible that they will decline to pick it up. My gut says that they're going to weigh in on it. And look, there's absolutely no justification, especially for Congress. I mean, you can have a different conversation about the state investigation. I think they, too, have an obvious, clearly recognizable ability to get those tax returns. But for Congress, it's the clear letter of the law that they can access it. It's ridiculous that it's been held up this long, but that does not mean that the Supreme Court is actually going to allow it. I mean, He's already gotten 2 people on there. There are others who are 100% partisans, and so it is entirely possible that the Supreme Court is going to rule that we will just never see it ever. That's possible. Hold on a second. I want to test to see, is it possible to? It is possible to remove someone. Okay, good. Trolls get banned. That's my rule. But anyway, so that's out there. Most recent update doesn't necessarily matter because, of course, he's going to appeal. And I will say what I always say. He is fighting harder to hide his tax returns than I have ever fought for anything. I mean, like, if you had a friend who is fighting this hard year after year, level after level, spending millions of dollars to hide a document while saying that that document is proof positive that I am rich and awesome when it comes to business, would you trust them? Would you actually trust them? I would not. Anyway, so we got less than a half an hour until the show. If you got some comments, some questions, feel free. We can talk a little bit. Like I said, Michael Brooks is going to be joining me, so it should be really exciting. If you haven't already seen, yesterday I endorsed Bernie Sanders. That video is up on the channel, so you can definitely take a look at that. If you have any questions about the endorsement, feel free. Can I talk about the shooting? I mean, right now it's they're still doing their search. It's a developing story. Obviously, a tragedy. It's terrible, and it's even worse that, I mean, it's been drilled into us at this point that we know that they're not going to do anything. State might, maybe. They might do a little bit, but the federal government's not going to care. Best we can hope for is that Trump will tweet about it once, and that's honestly as much as I can possibly expect that he'll do. So, okay. Let's see. We knew who you were endorsing. Yeah, probably. Why don't we hear more about Jordan and him hiding the perverts at college? Well, look, we did a ton of videos about that. I tweeted about it a bit recently. Like, it's amazing that now Jim Jordan is like fascinated with whistleblowers when he didn't give a damn about people blowing whistles back when he could do something about it. Unfortunately, and look, I'll keep bringing it up, but the sad truth is they're just giving him this one. It's like, well, all these people are saying you knew and you allowed these terrible crimes to continue, but we don't think we can do anything about it, so we're not going to. I might sneeze. Hold on. It's like the violations of the Emoluments Clause. It's like so much of this. Like, the people who are in a position to actually do something about it have decided that they're not going to, that they either don't care or they don't think it's worth their time. What are you gonna do? How can you stand the toxicity of LOL? Marquise, I think, is referencing the AOC thing. I mean, honestly, I don't, because I haven't played in months. I would like to again. I miss it. I mean, I would argue it's probable that I have played more hours of League than any other video game. I think that's actually pretty much guaranteed at this point. I mean, I played a lot of EverQuest back in the day, played a lot of GoldenEye, Smash Brothers, a few other things, a lot of Lotro, but I think League is the most. I wonder if I was ever matched up with AOC. That would be interesting to find out. We'll never find out her summoner name, unfortunately. Okay. What do you think will happen to Roger Stone? He is stupid enough and has compromised himself enough and is not powerful enough to evade some sort of consequences. So I think with him, it's possible that he could go to jail. That's entirely possible. And be another fall guy as the people he was assisting at a higher level, don't suffer anything. You excited for The Witcher on Netflix? Certainly. Oh, by the way, I can say I did watch the first episode of The Mandalorian yesterday, and it was good. It was pretty good. I don't think it was perfect. There wasn't much that happened in it, and I really do think that if you're going to have Pedro Pascal as your actor, he's got to take off his helmet occasionally. But I did very much enjoy it. I think that they're doing a good job. It looked very good. Some interesting characters. I am certainly excited for the Obi-Wan series. I think that could be awesome. I'm just excited for, if The Mandalorian does well and if Disney Plus does well, we could get more of these series, and I would really like that. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to have to leave momentarily because I got to coordinate with... Bobby says Disney shill. Yes, look, I have been incredibly critical of Disney any number of different times, and I love Bernie's actions against them. Also like Star Wars. So, and my hair's not red. Yeah, I also consider myself a Star Trek guy, but I liked it, and I want to see more shows. It's a great world, and the movies. I like the movies. I even kind of like some of the prequels, and I like the most recent ones. But they investigate a very narrow bit of this world. There's so much to it. How is it possible to keep your bias straight up and down when especially TYT does so much for reporting on Bernie Sanders? Well, part of it is that I never try to hide that I support him. I don't try to pretend that I'm objective, and I just happen to say a lot of positive things about him. That's why I endorsed him formally, to let you know that if you consider that to be a form of bias, I'm admitting to it. I try to be fair to the different candidates. Obviously, I'm more interested in some than others. It was kind of lacking in secondary characters. Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's that one guy who died. That was sad. I kind of liked him. Yeah, it doesn't have a ton of secondary characters that seem like they'll show up in the second episode, but it's still early on. I think that they wanted to establish sort of the tone, and give you a little bit of information about the main character. Okay. Okay, guys, I should probably run because I'm down to like 20 minutes or so, but you should definitely watch the full show. Lots of great stuff we're going to be talking about with Michael Brooks today. And like I said, big rundown on the Rodney Reed case with one of the biggest experts on it. So definitely tune in for that. I'll see you guys soon. Shut up, Gabby. It's all smelly. You're smelly.